In the fading light of a late autumn afternoon, Navy SEAL Jack Harper stood at the edge of a dense forest in the shadow of the rugged mountain range. His sharp eyes scanned the narrow dirt path before him, a trail of dark crimson staining the earth like a sinister thread unwinding into the unknown. Beside him, Rex, his loyal K9 partner, a powerful German shepherd with keen instincts and unwavering loyalty, sniffed the air, ears pricked toward the faintest sound. The trail of blood was fresh, glistening faintly under the waning sun, compelling Jack to follow, despite the heavy weight of unease settling in his chest. Jack was supposed to be on a rare break from active duty, a chance to catch his breath away from the chaos of covert operations and hostile terrain. But when the village elder had approached him hours earlier with a desperate plea, the soldier in him could not turn away. Strange disappearances had plagued this remote mountain village for months, whispers of people vanishing without a trace, leaving only fear and suspicion behind. The locals' faces were etched with worry and exhaustion, and their stories carried a weight that no ordinary explanation could satisfy. Before we continue, make sure to like and subscribe to never miss a new video. And tell me, where are you watching this video from? I love seeing all different people come together for these stories. The villagers had warned Jack not to venture too far. Speaking of dangers lurking beyond the tree line, shadows that moved with unnatural intent and howls that pierced the night like a warning. But Jack's discipline and training told him that every clue had a root, and every mystery had an answer. The trail of blood was a thread he could not ignore. With a silent nod, Jack adjusted the pack on his back, the weight familiar and comforting. Rex stepped forward, paws brushing the undergrowth as he followed the trail with practiced precision. The forest around them was alive with the sounds of rustling leaves and distant bird calls, but beneath that lay a deeper stillness, as if the woods themselves were holding their breath. As they moved deeper into the heart of the mountain's embrace, Jack's mind flickered back to the village elder's words. "The mountain has eyes," the old man had said, voice low and tremulous. "It watches us, waits for the lost. Many have walked these paths and never returned. You must be careful, soldier." Jack had nodded then, masking his concern beneath a calm exterior. Now, as the trail wound upward and the trees grew thicker, shadows lengthening under the canopy, he understood the gravity of those warnings. The blood was not just a sign of injury. It was a mark of something far more sinister haunting this wilderness. Rex suddenly halted, nose twitching as he growled softly, a low rumble that barely disturbed the silence. Jack crouched, eyes narrowing as he scanned the area. There, just beyond a twisted oak, lay the remnants of a struggle. Broken branches snapped in unnatural angles, and a smear of blood leading toward the steeper incline ahead. The forest floor was disturbed, footprints muddied and scattered, telling a story of panic and desperate flight. Jack's hand instinctively reached for the sidearm strapped to his thigh, though he knew the real weapon lay in his patience and awareness. He crouched lower, signaling Rex to stay close. The dog's keen eyes flicked from shadow to shadow, muscles taut and ready. The mountain air grew colder with each step, the wind whispering through the pines like a mournful hymn. Somewhere ahead, the trail disappeared beneath a thick veil of underbrush, as if nature itself sought to conceal whatever horrors lay beyond. But Jack was not deterred. He pressed on, driven by a sense of duty that transcended exhaustion and fear. As night began to settle, the first stars peeking through gaps in the canopy, Jack reached a small clearing where the village's fragmented stories suddenly echoed in his mind. Locals had spoken of shadows flickering just beyond the firelight, strange figures glimpsed at the edge of vision, and eerie howls that shattered the silence when the moon was high. He scanned the tree line, every muscle alert. Rex let out a low, warning growl, ears pinned back as he stared into the darkness. Jack's breath caught, senses screaming that they were not alone. The forest seemed to close in around them, heavy with unseen eyes and whispered threats. Jack knelt beside Rex, voice low but steady. "Stay sharp, boy. We're not out here by accident." The bond between man and dog was unspoken but profound, a silent agreement that together they would face whatever lay ahead. Jack's mind cataloged every detail. The trail, the forest, the fear that clung to the villagers' tales. None of it was coincidence. As darkness deepened, the trail of blood led them further into the unforgiving wilderness, the mountain secrets waiting silently to be uncovered. Jack Harper and Rex were no strangers to danger. But this was a new kind of threat, one that would test their courage and resolve in ways neither had imagined. With careful steps and steady hearts, they disappeared into the night. Shadows among shadows, drawn by the whisper of a mystery that demanded to be solved. The mountain watched, and the hunt had only just begun. The mountain range loomed ahead like a colossal fortress, its jagged peaks piercing the sky, cloaked in dense forests that whispered ancient secrets with every gust of wind. The sun had long dipped beyond the horizon, leaving only the faint glow of twilight to illuminate the rugged terrain. Jack Harper adjusted his pack and tightened the straps on Rex's harness. The duo poised at the threshold of a wilderness both breathtaking and merciless. Jack had always known the mountains were unforgiving, beautiful in their raw majesty, but indifferent to the frailty of man. Here, nature's grandeur concealed dangers lurking beneath the canopy. The narrow trail they followed wound upward, cutting through thick stands of pine and fir, the scent of damp earth and pine needles filling the crisp air. Each step was deliberate, measured, as Jack and Rex ascended deeper into the wilderness. The village lay far behind them now, its flickering lights swallowed by the growing darkness. The silence of the mountains was profound, broken only by the occasional snap of twigs underfoot or the distant call of a lone owl. Jack's senses sharpened, instincts honed from years of covert missions, alerting him to every subtle shift in the environment. Rex padded silently beside him, every muscle coiled, eyes scanning the shadows. The dog's keen nose twitched constantly, picking up scents that eluded human detection. Together, they moved like a single entity, attuned to the rhythms of the wild. As they climbed higher, the terrain grew steeper and more treacherous. Rocky outcrops jutted out from the earth, and thick underbrush tangled along the path, forcing Jack to navigate carefully. The trail of blood they followed was no longer a simple smear on the dirt. It had deepened into splatters, as if the injured party struggled desperately to escape whatever pursued them. The villagers' fragmented stories echoed in Jack's mind, whispers of shadows slipping through the trees at night, figures glimpsed just beyond the edge of vision, and eerie howls that cut through the stillness. At first, he had dismissed them as superstition or fear. But now, enveloped by the mountain's embrace, he understood the weight behind those words. Something was out there, watching, waiting. Jack stopped briefly to study the terrain, eyes narrowing as he scanned the surrounding forest. The trees stood tall and silent, their branches forming a dense canopy that filtered the moonlight into ghostly patterns on the forest floor. The air was thick with the scent of damp moss and decaying leaves, a reminder of the cycle of life and death that played out beneath the ancient boughs. Rex growled low, a warning that sent a chill down Jack's spine. The dog's gaze fixed on a thicket ahead, where a movement flickered like a shadow caught between branches. Jack crouched, hand reaching instinctively for the combat knife strapped to his belt. His breath steadied as he strained to see beyond the darkness. Suddenly, A figure darted through the underbrush, too quick and agile to be a human, yet too deliberate to be an animal. It vanished as swiftly as it appeared, leaving only a rustle of leaves in its wake. Jack's heart pounded, adrenaline surging through his veins. He signaled Rex to stay close, muscles tense and ready. The mountain's silence returned, heavier now, charged with an unseen presence. Jack's mind raced through possibilities. Could it be a wild animal injured and desperate? Or something more sinister, as the villagers feared? The trail of blood, the strange sightings, it all pointed to a threat far beyond ordinary. He pressed onward, each step a test of endurance as the forest thickened. The path became a narrow ledge beside a sheer drop, roots and rocks threatening to unbalance even the most sure-footed. Rex navigated with precision, his paws barely making a sound on the damp earth. Jack's gaze remained fixed on the trail, unwilling to lose the fragile thread leading them deeper into the mountain's heart. As night settled fully, a cold wind swept through the trees, carrying with it a mournful howl that seemed to rise from the depths of the valley below. Jack froze, every instinct screaming that they were not alone. The sound was unlike any animal he had heard before, haunting, almost human, echoing through the darkness like a warning. He crouched beside Rex, voice barely more than a whisper. "We're close, Rex. Stay sharp." The dog's eyes gleamed in the moonlight, a fierce determination reflecting back at Jack. Together, they moved forward, shadows among shadows, threading their way through the labyrinth of trees and rocks. Hours passed as they climbed, the trail twisting and turning, leading them higher into the mountains. The air grew thinner and colder, each breath a sharp sting in Jack's lungs. The bloodstains became more erratic, smeared across rocks and tree bark, evidence of a desperate struggle. At one point, Jack paused to survey the landscape. The forest below stretched into the darkness, a sea of shadows broken only by the faint glow of distant village lights far beneath the peaks. Above, the stars glittered cold and distant, indifferent to the plight unfolding within the mountain's grasp. Jack's thoughts drifted to the villagers' warnings again, their tales of shadows and strange howls, now undeniably real. He felt the weight of their fear, the sense of something ancient and malevolent lurking just beyond sight. Rex suddenly stopped, nose twitching furiously as he barked softly, signaling the presence of something unseen. Jack's gaze darted to a narrow path, veiled by thick underbrush, where the blood trail vanished. The forest beyond seemed to pulse with an unnatural energy, the trees bending as if whispering secrets. Jack took a deep breath and stepped forward, senses heightened. The mountain was no longer just a backdrop. It was a living entity, watching, waiting to reveal its darkest secrets. As they ventured further into the wilderness, every sound, every shadow, every fleeting glimpse of movement told a story of a mystery far deeper than any man had dared to uncover. Jack Harper and Rex were no longer just tracking an injured party. They were stepping into the heart of something ancient, a silent darkness that had thrived beneath the mountain's beauty for generations. The night stretched on, cold and relentless, as they pressed onward into the unknown, the trail leading them ever higher into the unforgiving embrace of the mountains. The forest grew denser, the canopy above weaving a nearly impenetrable shroud that dimmed the moonlight to a faint, ghostly glow. Jack Harper moved cautiously, each step deliberate as he traced the trail that had become more than just a path. It was now a grim tapestry of violence stitched into the earth. Beside him, Rex was alert, nostrils flaring as he sniffed the air, muscles coiled like a predator's, ready to react at a moment's notice. The signs of struggle were undeniable. Jack's trained eyes caught every detail. Torn scraps of fabric snagged on jagged branches, leaves crushed and scattered as if trampled in haste, and blood, thicker now, smeared across bark and stone, marking a desperate flight through the unforgiving terrain. The trail was jagged and erratic, leading them higher into the mountains, where the air grew thin and cold. As they ascended, Jack's mind pieced together the fragments of the scene. Whoever had left this trail had been fighting for their life, pushed to the brink but unwilling to surrender. The forest seemed to hold its breath, the usual chorus of nocturnal creatures silenced, replaced by an oppressive stillness that pressed in from every side. Rex suddenly stiffened, ears swiveling toward a faint sound, a rustle too deliberate to be the wind. Jack's hand instinctively went to his knife, his breath steadying as he scanned the dense underbrush. Ahead, partially hidden by thick foliage, was the entrance to a cave, its gaping maw obscured by hanging vines and shadows. Jack crouched low, signaling Rex to stay alert. The cave's mouth was dark, swallowing the faint light and promising secrets best left undisturbed. Yet the blood trail ended here, smeared on the rocks at the threshold, as if the injured had sought refuge or been dragged inside. With a final glance toward the forest behind them, Jack stepped forward, the cold stone beneath his fingers rough and damp. His flashlight beam pierced the darkness, revealing jagged walls etched with strange markings, symbols carved deep into the rock, their meaning unknown but unsettling. The air inside was stale, tinged with the metallic scent of blood and something else. An ancient, earthy musk that spoke of long-forgotten rituals. Rex moved beside him, low growls rumbling from his throat as his eyes adjusted to the gloom. The dog's instincts screamed caution, but Jack pressed deeper, every sense heightened. The cave twisted and narrowed, forcing them to navigate carefully over uneven ground, slick with moisture. Jack's fingers brushed against more of the carvings, intricate patterns that seemed to pulse with an otherworldly energy. He paused to study them, a chill crawling up his spine. These were not random scratches, but deliberate symbols. Warnings, perhaps, or language lost to time. The weight of history pressed down on him, mingling with the immediate danger they faced. A sudden noise shattered the silence, a faint scrape like nails dragging across stone. Jack froze, every muscle tensing as his flashlight beam swept the chamber. From the shadows emerged a figure, hunched and trembling, eyes wide with terror. It was a young woman, her clothes torn and face streaked with dirt and tears. "She's alive," Jack whispered, relief flooding through him even as adrenaline surged anew. He moved forward slowly, hands raised in reassurance. "It's okay. You're safe now." The woman's voice was barely audible, trembling with exhaustion and fear. They took my friend for the sacrifice." Jack's mind raced, the fragmented stories from the village converging into a grim reality. This was no ordinary predator stalking the mountains. It was something darker, a cult perhaps, performing rituals with human victims. The blood trail they'd followed was a desperate cry for help, a path leading to this cave where horror had unfolded. Rex nudged the woman gently, offering comfort in his own way. Jack crouched beside her, scanning the shadows for any sign of pursuit. The cave's silence was suffocating, broken only by the woman's ragged breaths and the distant drip of water echoing through the rock. "Where are the others?" Jack asked quietly, voice steady despite the urgency pressing on him. "They're deeper, in the fortress. They take them there at night," she whispered, eyes darting to the cave entrance as if expecting enemies to emerge at any moment. "Please, you have to stop them." Jack nodded, his resolve hardening. The stakes were higher than he had imagined. This was no mere investigation. It was a rescue mission against a threat that lurked beneath the mountain's beauty, cloaked in shadow and ancient rites. He signaled Rex to stay close and helped the woman to her feet, careful as she leaned heavily on him. The cave's walls seemed to close in, the eerie symbols a reminder that they were stepping into a world where fear and darkness intertwined. As they prepared to leave the cavern, a sudden noise from deep within made Jack freeze, a whisper of movement, faint but deliberate. His hand went to his sidearm, eyes narrowing as he scanned the inky blackness ahead. Rex growled low, hackles raised, muscles taut like a coiled spring. The young woman's grip tightened on Jack's arm, her breath shallow and quick. Something, or someone, was watching them from the depths of the cave. Jack's mind raced through tactical options, every instinct screaming that the danger was far from over. The trail of blood had led them here, but the true threat was still hidden in the shadows, waiting to reveal itself. With a steadying breath, Jack signaled for silence. The cave's darkness pressed in, thick and suffocating as they moved cautiously forward, ready to face whatever lurked beyond the flicker of their flashlight beams. The mountain's secrets were unfolding, and Jack Harper was determined to uncover them, no matter the cost. Jack Harper's fingers brushed the cold stone as he crouched near the cave's entrance, the young woman trembling beside him. The air was thick with tension, each breath a visible puff in the cool darkness. He reached for his radio, fingers fumbling briefly before the grim realization settled in. No signal. The mountainous terrain had severed all lines of communication, isolating them as if the very earth conspired to keep the secrets buried. He glanced at the woman, whose wide eyes reflected a mixture of fear and hope. "I'll try to get backup," Jack whispered, though he knew it was a promise he couldn't immediately keep. The mountains were a fortress, cutting off contact and leaving him to rely solely on his skills and instincts. Rex growled low, ears pinned back, muscles coiled as though sensing the unseen eyes that watched from the shadows. Jack's gaze swept the cave's mouth and surrounding forest. The oppressive silence was heavy with menace, broken only by the faintest rustle of leaves and the distant echo of a wolf's howl. From somewhere deeper within the woods, movement flickered, a shadow slipping between trees with unnerving stealth. Jack's pulse quickened. He was no stranger to being watched, but this was different. The presence was deliberate, patient, and unsettlingly close. He signaled to the woman to stay behind as he moved cautiously toward the forest edge, Rex padding silently at his side. The dense underbrush seemed to close in around them, every snapped twig and shifting leaf amplified in the stillness. Jack's breath slowed, training his senses to detect any anomaly. Suddenly, a figure emerged from the darkness, cloaked in muted colors that blended seamlessly with the forest. The stranger's eyes glinted beneath a hood, watching with a cold, unreadable expression. Jack's hand instinctively dropped to his sidearm, the weight reassuring against his palm. The stranger spoke in a low voice, barely more than a whisper carried on the wind. "You shouldn't be here." Jack's response was measured. "I'm looking for people taken from the village. I'm here to help." The figure's eyes narrowed, a flicker of something unreadable passing before they vanished back into the shadows. Without another word, the stranger melted into the forest, leaving Jack and Rex alone with a growing sense of unease. The villagers' warnings echoed in Jack's mind, tales of a presence that watched from the trees, a force that manipulated the darkness itself. He realized now that the cult was not only performing dark rituals, but also employing a network of watchers, silently stalking anyone who dared approach. Jack's radio crackled faintly, a brief burst of static that sparked hope before falling silent once more. Backup was out of reach for now. He would have to rely on his own resources. Returning to the cave, Jack found the young woman clutching her knees, eyes darting nervously. "They're watching every move," she whispered. "The cult has eyes everywhere." Jack nodded solemnly. "We'll need to be careful. No mistakes." The mountain's silence pressed upon them like a living thing, the shadows shifting with unseen threats. Every step forward was a gamble, every breath heavy with the knowledge that discovery could mean death. As night deepened, Jack and Rex positioned themselves strategically near the cave's entrance, eyes scanning the dark forest beyond. The sense of being hunted grew stronger, the unseen watchers closing in like a tightening noose. Jack's mind raced through possibilities. Without communication and with enemies lurking unseen, his mission had become a solitary fight against a shadow that threatened to consume all who trespassed. The mountain had become a labyrinth of fear and deception, and Jack Harper stood at its center, determined to unravel the darkness before it claimed more lives. The cave's damp darkness clung to Jack Harper's skin as he guided the young woman deeper into the labyrinth of stone and shadow. The faint glow of his flashlight cut through the gloom, revealing jagged walls etched with unsettling symbols that seemed to pulse with an ancient, malevolent energy. Each step echoed softly against the cold rock, a reminder of the silence that had swallowed the mountain's secrets. Behind them, Rex moved with silent purpose, nose close to the ground, ears alert for any sign of danger. The woman's breaths were shallow and quick, a fragile thread of life hanging in the balance as she clung to Jack's steady presence. Her eyes darted nervously, haunted by the horrors she had escaped, yet forever marked by them. As they rounded a bend, the cave opened into a larger chamber, its ceiling lost in darkness and walls scattered with strange artifacts, carved idols, bones arranged in cryptic patterns, and remnants of candles melted into grotesque shapes. The air was thick with the scent of smoke and something far darker, a tangible weight of despair and ritualistic malevolence. Jack's flashlight caught movement near a crude wooden cage, its bars worn and scarred. Inside, a young woman huddled, eyes wide with terror and exhaustion. She looked up as Jack approached, hope and disbelief flickering across her face. "You're safe now," Jack said firmly, crouching beside the cage. "We're here to get you out." The captive's voice trembled as she whispered, They're going to sacrifice more. Tonight." Jack's jaw tightened. The fragmented warnings from the village converged into a grim reality. This was no isolated threat, but a calculated evil thriving in the mountain's shadows. The young woman they rescued earlier, Mia, stepped forward, her voice steady despite the fear in her eyes. "I escaped from the ceremony. They take the victims to the fortress hidden deeper in the mountains. That's where the sacrifices happen." Jack exchanged a glance with Rex, whose growl was low and fierce. The cult's reach extended beyond the cave, into the wilderness, into the very heart of the mountain. "We have to move quickly," Jack said, voice resolute. "Do you know the way?" Mia nodded, biting her lip. "I can lead you, but we have to be careful. They have guards and traps. The fortress is well hidden." Jack's mind raced through the tactical challenges ahead. Without backup, communication, or clear knowledge of the enemy's numbers, this mission was a dangerous gamble. But hesitation was not an option. As they prepared to leave the chamber, a sudden noise shattered the silence. A faint shuffle, a shadow slipping through the darkness beyond the flicker of their flashlights. Jack stiffened, hand dropping to his sidearm, eyes scanning the blackened corners. Rex's growl deepened, muscles taut as he positioned himself between Jack and the unknown threat. The cave seemed to pulse with unseen watchers, the weight of the cult's presence pressing down like a storm ready to break. Jack signaled for silence, every sense on high alert. The mountain's secrets were closing in, and the hunt was far from over. With Mia leading the way, they slipped from the cave into the cold night, shadows merging with shadows as they ventured toward the hidden fortress. The path ahead was fraught with peril, but Jack Harper's resolve burned bright. He would stop the darkness before it consumed another soul. Moonlight filtered through the dense canopy as Jack Harper, Mia, and Rex moved cautiously along the narrow, winding paths that snaked higher into the mountain's depths. The air was thick with tension, heavy with the scent of damp earth and pine, each breath drawing in the cold night that seemed to press in from all sides. Mia's footsteps were careful but hurried, her knowledge of the terrain guiding them past hidden pits and makeshift traps laid by the cult's sentinels. Jack's eyes scanned the shadows relentlessly, muscles coiled and senses sharpened from years of training. Rex moved silently beside him, his nose low to the ground, alert to every scent that might betray their pursuers. The forest around them was alive with quiet menace, the eerie stillness punctuated only by distant rustles and the occasional snap of twigs, signs that they were not alone. Suddenly, from the darkness ahead, a low murmur rose, quickly replaced by the sharp bark of an alarm. Figures emerged from the shadows, cult members clad in dark hoods, their faces obscured, moving with practiced precision. They had been alerted to the intruder's presence, and the forest erupted into a deadly game of cat and mouse. Jack's tactical instincts kicked in immediately. He reached for his sidearm, but the thick underbrush and close quarters made gunfire a risky choice. Instead, he signaled Mia and Rex to scatter and create confusion. Rex snarled, darting toward the nearest figure, teeth bared, as Jack slipped behind a large oak, using the tree's bulk for cover. The cult members advanced, chanting low and ominous, their movements synchronized like a twisted ritual. Jack's eyes caught the glint of weapons, knives, clubs, and crude spears fashioned from sharpened branches. The attackers were relentless, but Jack's combat training gave him the edge. He moved swiftly, disabling one assailant with a precise strike to the temple, before feinting and dodging another's wild swing. Rex was a whirlwind of fury, leaping and snapping at their pursuers, his growls cutting through the night. The dog's bravery and keen senses kept Jack informed of threats approaching from blind spots, allowing him to anticipate attacks and counter with lethal efficiency. Despite their skill, the cult's numbers pressed heavily against them. Jack realized this was no mere skirmish. It was a calculated pursuit designed to wear them down before they reached the fortress. Amid the chaos, Mia reappeared, leading a small group of captives, young men and women bound and bruised, their eyes wide with terror, but flickering with hope. Jack's focus shifted instantly to their safety. With a quick command, he ordered Rex to cover their retreat, while he and Mia guided the captives through a narrow ravine hidden beneath thick foliage. The forest seemed to close behind them, the cult's shouts fading but not silenced. Jack's heart pounded, adrenaline surging as they navigated the treacherous terrain. The weight of responsibility settled heavy on his shoulders. Every second counted. Every misstep could mean capture or death. As they reached a sheltered clearing, Jack paused, scanning for signs of pursuit. The captives huddled close, faces pale and shaken, but alive. Mia's voice trembled as she recounted the horrors they had witnessed. Rituals bathed in blood, sacrifices made in the dead of night, and a fortress shrouded in darkness, where the cult's leader held sway. Jack's resolve hardened. This was no longer just a rescue. It was a mission to dismantle a malignant force that had thrived unchecked for too long. With Rex at his side and Mia's knowledge guiding them, he vowed to see it through, no matter the cost. The mountain's shadows lengthened as the group pressed onward, each step a defiance against the darkness stalking their every move. Jack knew the path ahead was fraught with peril, but the lives depending on him made retreat impossible. In the heart of the wilderness, under a veil of cold moonlight, the hunt had truly begun. Night had fallen deep over the rugged mountain landscape, casting long shadows that mingled with the thick pines and rocky outcrops like silent sentinels guarding ancient secrets. Jack Harper crouched behind a cluster of jagged boulders, his breath steady despite the tension coiling in his muscles. Beside him, Rex lay motionless, ears pricked and eyes sharp in the faint moonlight. Mia whispered low, her voice barely audible as she pointed toward the silhouette of a fortress nestled within a secluded valley. A dark shape carved into the mountainside, hidden from casual view but unmistakable to those who knew where to look. The fortress was a grim relic, its stone walls scarred by time and neglect, yet fortified with the menacing aura of a place that held terrible purpose. Jack's mind cataloged every detail. Guard patrol routes, the flicker of torches behind barred windows, and the surrounding terrain's natural defenses. This was no ordinary stronghold. It was a lair built to imprison and to terrify, and within its walls, unspeakable horrors awaited. "We can't just storm the place," Jack said quietly, eyes scanning the layout. "Too many guards, and traps likely surround the perimeter. We need a plan, something precise." Mia nodded, her gaze steady despite the fear lingering beneath. "I know their routines. They change with the moon phases. But right now they're preparing for a ceremony. That's when the guards are most concentrated near the central chamber." Jack's jaw tightened. "Then we strike before the ceremony begins. We take out the sentries silently, get inside, and find the captives fast." The group settled into a tense silence, the weight of the coming mission pressing down like the cold mountain air. Jack reviewed every detail in his mind, formulating contingencies and escape routes, measuring risks with the precision born of years in the field. Rex shifted beside him, nudging Jack's hand with a reassuring nudge. The dog's unwavering loyalty was a steady anchor amid the storm of danger. As darkness deepened, they moved closer to the fortress, cloaked in shadows and silence. Mia led, her footsteps light but sure, navigating the hidden paths she knew so well. Jack followed, senses alert for any sign of alarm or patrol. They reached a concealed approach, a narrow ledge that skirted the fortress's outer wall, shielded by overhanging branches and jagged rocks. Jack knelt, inspecting the area for traps or alarms. The ground was scattered with dried leaves and dirt, but nothing that betrayed recent disturbance. "Good," he whispered. "We'll use this route to get inside." Mia pointed toward a small side entrance, partially concealed by debris and overgrown vines. "That door leads to the lower chambers. It's usually unguarded during the night shift." Jack nodded, already visualizing their infiltration. "We move fast, stay quiet, and stay together. Rex, you're on point for alert." The plan was simple but perilous. Infiltrate the fortress under cover of darkness, disable the guards silently, locate the captive victims, and escape before the cult's ceremony could begin. Every second counted. As they prepared to advance, Jack's mind flickered back to the faces of the villagers who had disappeared, their hopes pinned on this mission's success. Failure was not an option. With a final glance at his companions, Jack led the way along the ledge, heart pounding with a mix of adrenaline and resolve. The fortress loomed before them, a dark monolith hiding unspeakable cruelty. But tonight, its defenses would be tested. The silence of the mountain was broken only by the faint rustle of leaves, and the steady pulse of determination. Jack Harper was ready to face the darkness head-on, to fight for those who could not fight for themselves, and to bring light to the shadows that had claimed too many lives. Under the cloak of night, Jack Harper moved like a shadow among shadows, his breath steady and movements precise as he crept along the fortress's dimly lit corridors. The air was thick with the scent of damp stone and burning incense, a chilling reminder of the dark rituals that had stained these walls. Rex padded silently at his side, muscles tense and ears alert for any hint of danger. The fortress was a maze of narrow hallways and hidden chambers, each step forward bringing them closer to the heart of the cult's malevolence. Jack's eyes scanned every corner, every shadow, knowing that a single misstep could unravel their carefully laid plan. Ahead, muffled voices echoed, a low chant rising and falling, with a rhythm both hypnotic and ominous. Jack signaled for silence, pressing a finger to his lips. Mia nodded, her face pale but determined, as she led the way toward the source of the sound. They slipped past a pair of guards stationed near a heavy wooden door, moving with practiced stealth to avoid detection. Jack's knife gleamed briefly as he silently incapacitated one guard, the motion swift and merciless. Rex growled softly, signaling the path was clear. Inside the chamber, flickering candlelight illuminated a grim scene. Hooded figures encircled an altar, where captives lay bound and trembling. The cult leader, a tall man with piercing eyes and an aura of cold authority, stood at the center, chanting words that seemed to twist the very air with dark intent. Jack's jaw clenched as he took in the sight. The captive's fear, the leader's cruelty, and the ritual poised to claim more innocent lives. He raised a hand, signaling the team to prepare for action. The assault was swift and calculated. Jack moved with lethal precision, dispatching cult members before they could react. Rex lunged at another, teeth sinking into flesh, while Mia hurried to free the captives from their bonds. The clash was brutal but brief, the defenders caught off guard by the sudden onslaught. Amid the chaos, the cult leader confronted Jack, his voice a venomous hiss. "You cannot stop what has been set in motion." Jack met his gaze with unwavering resolve. "I stop those who hurt the innocent." The two clashed in a fierce struggle, Jack's training pitted against the leader's fanaticism. The fight was brutal, each strike a battle for survival. Rex intercepted the leader's attempt to flee, biting down hard and holding firm until Jack subdued him. With the leader incapacitated and the cult members neutralized, Mia led the captives out of the chamber, their expressions a mixture of relief and disbelief. Jack surveyed the aftermath, the grim reality of what had transpired etched into every stone. But there was no time for respite. The fortress would soon be swarming with reinforcements, and their escape needed to be as swift as their attack. Jack's gaze hardened. The fight was far from over, but in this moment they had reclaimed a sliver of hope from the darkness. The captives were free, and the cult's grip had been broken, if only temporarily. As they prepared to flee, Jack knew the mountain shadows still held many secrets, and the battle to bring light to this hidden terror was only beginning. The rush of cold mountain air filled Jack Harper's lungs as he sprinted down the narrow, winding paths away from the fortress, the weight of the freed captives pressing heavily in the small group behind him. The night was alive with chaos, the distant shouts of cult members regrouping, the sharp crack of branches snapping under hurried footsteps, and the relentless pounding of Jack's heart driving him forward. Behind them, the fortress loomed like a dark wound against the jagged peaks, its shadows chasing relentlessly. Rex led the way with unwavering confidence, nose to the ground, picking up the faintest traces of pursuit. The dog's keen senses were their lifeline in the maze of rugged terrain. guiding them through treacherous cliffs and tangled undergrowth with a precision born of unbreakable trust. Jack kept a watchful eye on the rear, moving swiftly to intercept any cult followers who dared to close in. The captives, though exhausted and battered, found strength in the urgency of escape. Their faces, pale and etched with fear, held flickers of hope that spurred Jack onward. Mia stayed close to them, offering whispered reassurances and steadying hands, a beacon of courage amid the darkness. The mountain paths twisted sharply, dropping steeply into narrow ravines and climbing over rocky ledges slick with dew. Jack's muscles burned with exertion, but he pushed through the fatigue, every step a defiance against the terror that had held these people captive. The cult's voices grew louder, their calls a chilling reminder that the hunt was far from over. Suddenly, a hail of arrows whistled past, embedding themselves into the trees just feet from the group. Jack dove to the side, pulling a young woman to safety behind a large boulder. Rex snarled, launching forward to confront the archers, his fierce growls echoing through the night. Jack scrambled to a vantage point, returning fire with precise shots that forced the cult members into retreat. The pursuit intensified as the group pressed deeper into the wilderness, the terrain growing ever more unforgiving. Jack's mind raced, calculating routes and escape strategies, knowing that survival depended on speed, stealth, and endurance. The mountain was both ally and adversary, its rugged beauty concealing countless dangers. Hours passed in a blur of motion and tension until the first pale light of dawn began to seep through the trees. Exhausted but undeterred, Jack led the survivors toward the village, their sanctuary and the first hint of safety in days. As the village came into view, relief washed over the group, though the scars of captivity lingered in every glance and whispered word. Authorities had been alerted, and the mountain's sinister cult was dismantled piece by piece through coordinated efforts sparked by Jack's daring rescue. In the quiet aftermath, the village began the slow process of healing. Families reunited, wounds were tended, and the shadow of fear that had gripped the community started to lift. Yet, beneath the surface, the memory of darkness remained, a reminder of the resilience required to face such evil. Jack Harper stood at the edge of the village, watching as the survivors embraced freedom. The mountain behind them was silent once more, its secrets momentarily laid bare. But Jack knew the fight was not over. The shadows always lingered where light dared not reach. With Rex by his side and Mia's quiet strength beside him, Jack prepared for whatever battles awaited, ready to confront the darkness wherever it might hide. The mountain had tested them all, but in the heart of that wilderness, a spark of hope had been ignited. A promise that even in the deepest shadows, courage could shine through. Jack Harper stood silently on the ridge overlooking the mountains, the morning sun casting long golden rays across the rugged landscape. Below, the village stirred with life, a quiet resurgence after the storm of darkness that had gripped it for so long. Faces once marked by fear now carried tentative smiles, and the air was lighter, filled with whispered hopes of healing and renewal. Beside him, Rex sat calmly, tail thumping softly against the earth, eyes scanning the horizon as if guarding against unseen threats. The bond between man and dog had been forged in the crucible of danger and sacrifice, unspoken yet unbreakable. Jack's gaze lingered on the distant peaks, where shadows still clung to hidden crevices and ancient caves. Reminders that darkness often lurked beneath even the most breathtaking beauty. Mia approached quietly, her footsteps soft on the rocky ground. She carried the weight of recent horrors with grace, her eyes reflecting both sorrow and strength. "The village is starting to heal," she said softly, her voice a balm to the lingering tension. "But the scars will remain, for all of us." Jack nodded, understanding the truth in her words. The mountain had tested them beyond measure, revealing horrors that would haunt them, but also the resilience that defined their spirit. "We did what we had to," he replied, "and we'll be ready if the darkness ever returns." They stood together, a trio bound by shared trials and unspoken promises. The villagers had been freed from the cult's grip, but the price had been steep. Lives had been shattered, innocence stolen, and yet hope endured. A fragile flame flickering against the vast wilderness. Jack's thoughts drifted to the journey that had brought them here. The trail of blood that led into the unknown. The terror hidden beneath the mountain's beauty. And the courage that had risen to confront it. He realized that this mission had changed him, carving a new path beyond the discipline of a soldier and the loyalty of a companion. As the sun climbed higher, Jack felt a sense of peace settle over him, tempered by the knowledge that vigilance was a constant companion. The mountain was a place of secrets, a realm where light and shadow danced in perpetual balance. Turning to Mia, he offered a faint smile. "There's a future here. For the village, for us. We just have to keep fighting for it." Mia returned the smile, a spark of hope shining through the weariness. Rex leaned into Jack's side, a reminder that even in the darkest times, bonds of trust and courage could light the way. Together, they began the slow descent back to the village, stepping into a new day shaped by resilience, unity, and the enduring human spirit. The mountain silence held its secret still. But Jack Harper was ready to face whatever lay beyond the horizon, knowing that the strength to overcome darkness lived not just in weapons or tactics, but in the unyielding heart of those who dared to stand against it.